Nationals face a monumental task in the National League East. They're 5 games behind the Mets with 27 games to play, and New York is in town tomorrow. But first things first, they've got to take care of the Atlanta Braves, who try to get on the board in the finale of this series this afternoon at Nationals Park. Hi again, friends, with Oklahoma Joe. It's Eyebrow Slim. Let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. My partner's a big fan of the spaghetti westerns. We've got 25, 26 games left, Joe. There have been some positives for the Braves in 2015, mostly coming from the veteran core of this ball club.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe what's going on right now. Let's start with the good, and those are the veterans. These guys have all been combining to do good work offensively for the Atlanta Braves. They're the only thing right now that's really carrying the ball club. So then we go from the good to the bad. Okay, the bad, the team ERA since August 1st is just awful, the worst in Major League Baseball, almost a full run worse than the next closest team. The bullpen almost pitching half the games in the last 10. And the ugly, of course, would be the 11 straight losses for the Braves, the most since '82. The road straight losses, the most since '42, and the worst winning percentage in quite some time. Good, bad, and the ugly today. Let's hope it's great. We can get back on the winning track.
A win for Manny Banuelos, I know, would make my partner's day. We'll see if that happens. It's the finale. Braves and the Nationals from Nationals Park. Starting lineup, some more coming up in a second.
Atlanta Braves baseball is presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Right stuff, low price, every day.
Perfect day for baseball. Big crowd on hand. Braves trying to pick up a win against the surging Washington Nationals. Let's check out Atlanta's starting lineup presented by skipper Freddie Gonzalez. It's a lineup that had a couple of changes made at the last moment this afternoon. Markakis leads off. Jace Peterson was originally hitting 6th. Hector Olivera was going to start, but he fouled the ball off his foot last night. He can't go. That means Adonis Garcia is going to play third base and bat sixth. And Joe Ross, a very talented youngster, gets the ball for the Nationals today.
Big guy, too, 6'3", 185 out of Oakland, California. Just 22 years old. Take a look at these numbers through the lineup. 110. I've never seen an average that low first time through the order. But that's the way it's working for him right now. He's only given up 7 homers. 221 batting average against him, but walked 6 guys in his last start against St. Louis. Says he couldn't grip the baseball and didn't use the rosin bag. We'll see if he uses it today.
First man he'll face is Nick Markakis, and he jumps on the first one and drives it foul and out of play.
92 to 95 on his fastball, a short, quick, hard slider, and a changeup.
That missed up and in for ball 1 to Markakis. Wind blowing in, breezy day, comfortable day. Temperature is going to be upper 80s, but very low humidity, which is always welcome. And Markakis couldn't stop his swing, and he's rung up for strike 2. 1-2 the count. In the air to center. That ball's tailing away, and that ball's going to bounce up against the fence. And Nick Markakis with a 2-strike hit, doubles to start the game.
Good start. Taylor, who's playing today for the first time in about 5 days because of that sore knee, broke in on this. High fastball. And when it came off the bat, Taylor broke in. I don't think he was going to run it down anyway. It short hopped the wall.
So an excellent start for the Braves. That's their 5th extra base hit of the series. And it gives Jace Peterson a chance to move Markakis over. Jace at 236 now for the year and takes downstairs. He's hitless in the series and is riding an 0 for 12 streak.
Good idea to do whatever he's got to do to get him over. Set up Freeman to get that first run on the board.
Tried again. And that one fouled back to the screen, and on the ricochet ends up between the plate and the pitcher's mound. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Braves still with a good record when they score first, 34-21.
Pair of former Padres squaring off here in the first inning as Peterson takes a little high. Big 3-team deal with the Padres, Rays, and Nationals brought Joe Ross to the Nationals team. He was part of the Will Myers trade. And Peterson didn't get it. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Trey Turner also came to the Nationals in that deal, and that might turn out to be a real steal for Washington.
Yeah, a real good one. Ross was a first-round pick by the Padres in 2011. And his older brother pitches for San Diego, Tyson.
Popped up right side, and that's playable at second. And Rendon makes the catch. 1 on, 1 out. So Peterson can't advance Markakis. These are the kinds of at-bats that we didn't see a lot of in the first half of the season, when the Braves jumped out to a 42-42 mark. We're seeing them an awful lot here in the second half. Now it takes a hit to bring home Markakis. Freddie 4 for 8 against Washington in the series.
Showed those batting averages, Chip, of just 110 average the first time through the order. That would also lead to this. No runs allowed in the first inning in his first 12 starts. The Braves have a good opportunity. Would have been nice to get Nick over to third base.
Freeman drives one down the right field line. Did he keep it fair? He did not. God. A laser beam pulled foul. 1 ball, 1 strike.
When he hit this ball, you can see Terry Pendleton backing up from where he was. He'd gotten real close to the line so he could get a good look at it in case there was any question about whether it was fair or foul. No argument.
Now it's 1-2. Freddie Gonzalez and Carlos Tosca had a good look at it right down the first base line from their vantage point in the third base dugout. And that's a little low. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
For these veteran players that we were talking about in our opening comments and what good work they're doing, there's only so much they can say, only so much they can do to try to keep this team up, try to keep them motivated and going. Same thing for the coaching staff. You come to the park every day wanting to win, working hard to win, and it just has not been going the Braves' way. Freddie hooking that ball just foul, you know, a kind of an example of the way things are not going Atlanta's way right now. And they've got to start trying to make their own luck.
Freeman takes a walk. They're pitching him carefully all series long. And now they'll take their chances with A.J. Pierzynski, who's back in the lineup in Game 4 of the series.
In Ross's start against the Cardinals, he only went 2 2/3 innings. He only gave up 1 hit, but he walked 6 guys in those 2 2/3 innings. He had been running the bases. He was sweating profusely, and he did not use the rosin bag, and says he never has. I've never heard of a pitcher who didn't use the rosin bag,
well,
ever.
It's funny you mentioned that. I'm with you. I'd never heard of that either. When he went to the mound today to take his warm-ups, he did something I've also never seen. The rosin bag was on the back slope of the mound. He went over to the cleat cleaner, scraped off his feet, and kicked the rosin bag out into the dirt. Two on, 1 out for A.J. He's down a strike and popped out a play foul. It's quickly 0-2. Third start for Pierzynski in the series. Christian Bethancourt got the starting nod here yesterday and went 0 for 4. No balls, 2 strikes. Now Ramos asks for time behind the plate. Fly ball toward left. Worth on the run near the line. He's got it. Markakis still at second. Freeman at first. A.J. pops out. And the fate of the inning rests on the shoulders of Nick Swisher, who had a nice game at the plate here last night. 2 hits, including an RBI double in the Atlanta 8th.
Three of his 5 homers with Atlanta, 13 of his RBIs, and 3 for 7 in this series.
We all know how upbeat Nick is, how positive he is, how you look at him and talk to him for 10 minutes and you think, hey, maybe decaf once in a while. But he does have boundless energy. He's backing that up with good play right now, which always helps. Strike 1.
And he's encouraging. The other night after that tough loss by the Braves in extra innings, I'm told he was down in the tunnel shaking hands and high-fiving guys as they came off the field for their good work and hard effort that came up just short.
Sharply hit and through for a base hit. Here comes Markakis. Harper's got it, loads up. His throw's coming toward the plate. It'll be late. That ball gets away. Ross can't corral it. And now Swisher's going to take second base. And Ross has given up his first inning run this year. Nick Swisher with a 2-out single makes it 1-0. Single RBI, E9 on Harper.
Like a high hanging slider up in his eyes, ripped it hard. Watch Harper. He kind of double clutched here, kind of took 2 crow hops to get the ball out of his glove, and probably would have been better served just to throw the ball into second base. Tried to airmail it and short hopped Ramos. So the Braves take advantage and a chance to add to it.
Here's Adonis Garcia. And he takes a strike. Hector Olivera was in the original lineup and was penciled in the number 2 spot, but he fouled the ball off his foot last night. Can't go today. We'll see if he's available to pinch hit. To short. Desmond's got it. And that'll retire the side. The Braves get a first inning run, a real rarity. Markakis led off with a double. Swisher singled it home, and Manny Banuelos has an early lead. Games.
All right, good start.
It is a good start. Let's see what Manny Banuelos has in store for the Nationals, who also changed their starting lineup today. No play for Ryan Zimmerman. We're told it's just a day of rest for him, a man that's had foot problems all year long. And with the big Mets series coming up, they want to make sure he's healthy and ready to go. And that's exactly what Atlanta hopes Manny Banuelos can say today.
For Manny Banuelos, we thought we'd show you this today. Per 9 innings, averaging about a hit per inning. That's all right, but it's the walks that are a little bit disturbing. Good strikeout numbers. And in his last start against Miami, pitch limit, he only walked 1, but took the loss since he only went 2 2/3 innings. We'll give you the Ford Keys after this first pitch.
Which is coming to Jason Worth, and it's strike 1.
His Ford Keys to pitching success today. Pretty much about being aggressive. Whatever it takes to win today, whatever you got to do, and no more happy to be here for any of these young pitchers. It's time to grow up, take a step forward.
Might recall Banuelos saw the Nationals July 2nd, his first big league game, and he was dazzling. 7 strikeouts, only 2 hits over 5 2/3 innings. He locked horns with Max Scherzer. And the Braves won that game 2-1. That was the Cameron Maben walk-off game. That double down the left field line. That
bouncer
bounced over the third base bag. Manny threw 75 pitches that day down in Atlanta.
He's on about a 50 pitch limit his last start, so that's been bumped up. He might get 60 or 70 today, depending on how it goes. .510, 175 pounds, out of Durango, Mexico. Fastball, changeup are his two primary pitches.
And he just rallied to get Jason Worth after falling behind. 3 balls and a strike.
Good spot on that pitch. Down and away. This ball, little sinking action on it, down and away. Worth couldn't believe he missed it.
1 away for Rendon. He's hitting .267 in limited duty for the Nationals. Leg problems have plagued him all year long.
He's the only guy in their lineup today that does not have an extra base hit in this series. And that includes Taylor and Moore, who have barely played in this series.
How many extras does Washington have
in the lineup today? I don't. I can add that up. I don't know total because Zimmerman's not in there. I could find out how many he's got. 6, 9, 10, 11, 12 in their lineup.
Just in their lineup, not counting Zimmerman.
And yeah.
The Braves have 5 extra base hits in the series. That pretty much tells the tale of what's happened the first 3 games here. Two balls and a strike for Rendon. AJ might have stolen a strike there. 2-2.
Andy Fletcher behind the plate tonight. Jerry Meals moves down to third base to umpire. That's a good spot for him today.
Two balls, 2 strikes. Just a little bit inside.
Hang with him. Got away from him. Seems like Rendon's the only guy they've really done that to in this series. Hit him once.
And that's tipped and caught. Rendon is down on strikes. 2 outs.
Well, that pitch was moving, wasn't it? Supposed to be away, but it came in. Cutting.
So Bryce Harper's the batter.
Good start for Manny.
You bet. Harper is having a great series. He's walked 6 times as well, and he scored 6 runs. And just about anything being thrown at him is getting hit hard like that. And no matter where it goes, it's getting hit hard.
Seven walks to go with 5 hits. 4 of those are extras. 2 doubles, 2 homers. He's up to 100 runs scored already on the season.
Pop fly, foul, and out of play. Even Matt Williams was marveling at the home run that Harper hit last night. He said he wasn't trying to hit a home run, he didn't think, but it was just such a great swing and a great approach that he launched it to left center field.
He called it the evolution of his approach at the plate. Breaking balls kind of up and away, and he hit it out.
He's up at the front of the batter's box, but behind in the count, 0-2. Harper reached the 500 hit plateau last night. 4th active player with 500 or more hits before he's 23 years old. This one had him off stride, and he pops it up to short. Manny Banuelos has himself a very impressive first inning. Look at A.J. Pierzynski clapping his hands. He likes it. Shutdown inning. Atlanta leads by 1. Looks for more in the second. Banuelos, a couple of strikeouts in his first inning today. And while we have a moment, let's enjoy our AT&T U-verse trivia question. Bryce Harper has a dozen walks against Atlanta this year. Since 2010, what player has the most walks versus the Braves in a single season?
Well, Ryan Howard was the answer last night, wasn't he?
Yes.
Would they double up?
Might. That's a very good question. So we'll think about that this afternoon. As Harper pops out, he also has a throwing error as we move to inning number 2. Andrelton Simmons, Michael Bourne, and Manny Banuelos are coming up. Joe Ross, first inning run allowed today. A 2-out single by Nick Swisher brought home Nick Markakis. Sharply hit. Nice play by Escobar to his right. He's made a couple of tough plays in this series. That one a beauty. And Simmons is robbed. 1 out.
Showing you some of his shortstop reactions at third base. Had his feet moving prior to that line shot. Nice play.
That brings up Michael Bourne, the Braves center fielder, batting 8th today. We got the lowdown on Cameron Maybin last night. There was a contact lens problem, but it was a deeper problem than that. He has a corneal abrasion, scratch on the eyeball that's going to take a couple of days to heal. And Maybin, who's never played with glasses before, doesn't have a prescription pair of glasses that he can wear during game action. And until he gets those, he's going to have to just hope Mother Nature fixes the eye problem. So that gives Michael Bourne a chance to play today.
You ever had a corneal abrasion?
I've not.
I have. It is not fun.
Well, Freddie Freeman's gone through that problem with the Braves. I think Brian McCann had those types of problems in Atlanta too. As this ball's hit to the right side. Pitcher to the bag, close play, beats Bourne by a step. Nicely done. 2 out. And to Cameron's credit, he said he tried to play through that for a couple of days but was having trouble seeing out of his left eye. And the issue became too great in last night's game.
Especially as a hitter, if that's your dominant eye, right-handed hitter in your front eye, that's not a good thing. I've found anyway that it's easier to see and hit if you've got both eyes working.
Really?
That's been my
okay.
experience. Although sometimes with both eyes working.
Strike one to Banuelos, who's 0 for 2.
Sometimes it just looked like I had an eye problem.
Sharply hit and smothered at first by Tyler Moore, and Banuelos is done. So are the Braves in the second. 4, 5, and 6 up for the Nationals. 1-0 Braves early.
He was frustrated because he was playing well. Last 4 days it's been bothering him, but he was playing so well. He wanted to help his team, tried to get out there. Really bothered him last night when he could not catch the fly ball from Shelby Miller. Shelby Miller frustrated that he couldn't pick up his teammate Cameron Maybin. So we'll have to wait and see, but it looks like, yes, 4 or 5 days before he gets back in there until that heals up and he can put that contact back in. And Hector Olivera, who fouled the ball off the top of his foot last night, taking BP today, was a little uncomfortable. They decided to give him 1 day. Should be back in there tomorrow. Back to you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
And tomorrow it's the Braves and Phillies from Citizens Bank Park. Escobar, Desmond, and Ramos up for Washington. Again, no Ryan Zimmerman today. We're told it was a planned day off for him. We'll see how it works out. Banuelos got him in order in the first. 2 strikeouts. And the first pitch is ripped into left field. That'll get down for a hit. Escobar around first. He'll slam on the brakes. And Janelle Escobar is aboard to start the National second.
I'm not sure what it is after 4 games about the first pitch that the Braves have not quite figured out. But it would be wise to throw something off speed on the first pitch, or even bounce one up there because of his desire to hit the first pitch.
Ian Desmond had a big game last night. 3 hits, 2 runs, pair of doubles. And he did that the other night too. A key bunt in the 9th inning of game 2 of the series. The Braves led 2-1 with 2 strikes. Desmond was able to get a bunt down, moved Trey Turner to third base, and he came home on Den Decker's game-tying hit.
It's really a smart idea on his part because Braves are playing up the middle for a double play. That means Jace Peterson is swung over near the bag. Freddie Freeman's holding the runner on at first. But on top of that, you got a left-handed pitcher who's falling off a little more to the third base side. So you got a ton of room between the mound and first base to push the ball if you want, and that's what he tried to do.
Foul back, even count for Ian Desmond. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
Banuelos is sitting right at 90, a couple of 89s. When he first was with the Yankees in their organization, he was more in the 93, 94 range, even sometimes a little higher than that.
Tommy John's taking some of that velocity away from Banuelos, who also had some elbow discomfort after making several starts for the Braves. Got that taken care of. Went down to AAA, made a couple of rehab pitching stints. And now is back with the big league club, starting for a second time for Atlanta after the elbow issues. Full count. Escobar leads at first. Not going. Pitch high. Ball 4. A single and a walk. And here come the Nats. Here's Wilson Ramos. He's the catcher again this afternoon. Ramos has a hit in 11 of his last 13 games. He's knocked in 8 runs. Only Buster Posey and Yadier Molina have more RBIs than the 57 tallied by the Nationals catcher. That's cut on and missed. Strike 1.
Braves have had success pitching him in and pitching him up and in.
But when they've missed,
anything out over the plate, you're asking for trouble.
that's how to play foul. It's 0-2.
That was his bread and butter pitch right there, and he missed it.
Ramos is one of 4 Nationals with double-digit double play totals this year. He's hit to 12 of them. That's 3rd most on the team. Escobar's 1st, Zimmerman 2nd, Ramos 3rd, Bryce Harper's hitting to 10.
Good pitch. Didn't get the call, but a good spot.
Strike 3 inside corner.
He doesn't like the ball in there. And he did a little quick slide step pitch on him too. May have caught him off guard a little bit. He's jackknifing out of the way on a pitch that was right there.
Here's Michael Taylor. He's the man that broke our hearts in the 10th inning on Friday night. And he cracks this one down the left field line on the first pitch. 1 run scores. Here comes Desmond around third. He's getting the green light. Relay will be late. Taylor has knocked in 5 runs with his last 2 swings, and Washington leads 2-1.
Pitch up, belt high, and he was ready for it just like Escobar. Tell you what, it is hard to score from first on a double to straightaway left field, but that's what Desmond did, really cutting those corners. So his walk comes home to roost, and they take the lead.
So Taylor has 60 RBIs. Washington has its first lead, and here's Tyler Moore. That's one of the underreported stories of this Nationals ball club. Say what you will about their star-studded players either not playing well or have been playing hurt. Where would Matt Williams' club be without unheralded guys like Taylor and Moore and Clint Robinson this year?
Lobaton,
another one. Really an amazing story. These youngsters have kept them afloat. Washington playing good ball now. They're 5 over 500, 5 games behind the Mets. They will host New York in the first of a 3-game series here tomorrow. That's fouled away. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Tyler Moore, a 16th round pick. Taylor has a good lead. Peterson tries to keep him close, and that ball shot toward right. And Markakis, in a step or two, makes the grab. And there's the second out. So let's see what Joe Ross can do with 2 outs. He's got a 115 batting average, no homers or RBIs. Joe comes from a great family out of the Oakland area. His dad's a pediatrician. His mom is an emergency room nurse. And of course, brothers pitching in the major leagues at the same time. That's wonderful. Something Phil Niekro knew a thing or two about. The Russell brothers, the Forsch brothers. Now it's the Rosses. 1 in San Diego, 1 here in Washington. No balls at a strike.
Got a good swing at that. He's 3 for 26. That was a good cut.
That's high too. Can't forget the Maddox brothers either. Mike and Greg.
The Deans.
Paul and Dizzy. One ball, 1 strike. Ripped foul, out of play. Dizzy Dean's brother, his nickname I think was Daffy, believe it or not.
Yeah. He pitched in a doubleheader one time, and Dizzy pitched the first game. I think he threw a 1 or 2 hitter. Brother Paul pitched the second game, threw a no-hitter, and Dizzy said afterwards, if I'd known Paul was going to throw a no-hitter, I'd have done the same thing.
1-2 is low. Washington strikes for a pair here in the second. Leadoff single, a walk. A Ramos strikeout. Taylor double to left on the first pitch. And now the Nationals pitcher Joe Ross will face a 2-2 count. Jason Worth waits next. And the pitcher just got hit. Certainly not intentional. You could see from that Sherwin-Williams pitch track chart that Banuelos was all over the strike zone in that sequence with Joe Ross.
And we got him on the thigh above the knee.
And Roger McDowell makes his first visit to the mound. Banuelos got him in order in the first. He'll now face a seventh hitter in Jason Worth, who was ahead in the count 3-1 in his first at bat and later struck out. Worth's done a real nice job filling in for Denard Span in the #1 spot on the Nationals lineup card. Span's out for the rest of the year with a bad hip. He's got 2 on, 2 out, a chance to extend the lead. Banuelos already up to 40 pitches. He needed 75 to get through 5 2/3 at home against these guys.
He's trouble locating. The first inning he was hitting spots, made those 2 great pitches to Worth and Rendon for the strikeouts down and away. And if he's been trying to go there, he's missed badly, and then when he tries to come in, it's way in.
So Sugar Ray Marimone's going to have to get up early for Atlanta. All this trouble coming with Banuelos in the stretch. 1-2-3 first. Pinpoint control. Leadoff hit to Escobar. He's worked out of this position the entire inning. 2-1 count. And neither he nor the hitter know where the ball's going right now.
Yeah, he's lost his release point to be sure.
Swing and a drive belted to left. He wasn't going to miss on another 3-1 count. A 5-run inning for Washington. Worth hits a 3-run homer.
It's just his 7th of the year because of all the time he's missed and the lack of strength he had in his shoulders. But when a pitcher is struggling to hit the corners. Their only resort is to go down the middle, and he was sitting there waiting on it.
Five runs on 3 hits for Washington in the second. And here's Rendon, who struck out his first time up. 1 ball, 1 strike. Pitch number 30 for Banuelos in the second. Felt like he had a shot to get out of trouble after Tyler Moore flied out. The pitcher was coming up. Banuelos hit him, and then Worth launched the homer. Ground ball to short will end the inning. Washington scores 5 on 3 hits. Jason Worth batting first. It's the first homer of the day for the Nationals. A 3-run shot caps a 5-run inning, and we're off to the third.
Outdoors, right stuff, low price every day.
Washington scores 5 in the second. They lead 5-1 as we move to the third. Zombies, walkers, and the undead are invited to Zombie Night at Turner Field Friday, September 18th, when the Braves take on the Phillies. The ticket package includes a zombie survival kit, access to zombie makeup artists, and a pregame zombie walk around the field. For details, visit Tracy Roberts is laughing behind us. Visit Braves.com/zombie.
No, I think Paul Bird's already volunteered on that deal. He's going to be decked out for Zombie Night.
Okay, there. I like it. Think Larry Anderson would do it for the Phillies radio crew?
Doesn't take a lot of makeup, so yeah.
We'll ask him face to face tomorrow as Nick Markakis leads off Atlanta's third. Nick doubled and scored on Swisher's RBI hit. So Ross now given a big lead, 5-1. And Markakis a base hit to left. He has had an amazing year.
Time to come right back, get a couple more on the board, cut into the deficit. Good start.
155th hit this year for Nick.
There have been times this year where I've referred to him as kind of a counter puncher. He just waits and waits and waits and reacts to the pitch, and that was a case there. Didn't try to do too much with it.
Nick now 4th in the league in base hits. Let's see what Jace Peterson can do. He popped out his first at bat. Fly ball center. Playable for Taylor. He backpedals and has it. 1 out. And Freddie Freeman bats. They've tried to pitch him very carefully. That's understandable. Freeman has destroyed Nationals pitching all year. And fouled that one away. Strike 1.
Last 9 games here against the Nationals have not gone the Braves' way. They're 0-9 here. And you see that bullpen ERA, the starters ERA. They've been outscored 62-19. Now I have a follow-up to that. Last year the Braves allowed the Nationals 56 runs for the season. And Atlanta still has 3 more games plus the rest of this one to go today with them.
One ball, 1 strike.
And I think the Braves record the previous 2 seasons was 24-14.
That's correct.
It worn them out. Braves had worn them out.
I mean, we talked all the time. It seemed like the Braves were really in the collective heads of the Nationals team.
Right.
But that has turned dramatically this year. 2 balls and a strike. Fly ball lifted toward left. Worth is going to have room shy of the track. And he makes the play.
I think they still were in their heads early in the year, Chip, until that huge comeback. The one in which Dan Uggla hit the home run off Grelly to either tie or win the ball game late. But the Braves had led that game 8-1, 9-1, something like that. It was kind of crazy. And that seemed to give the Nationals the hop in their step they needed to realize they could come back against Atlanta no matter what the score.
He had woke him up. The hard slide by Simmons at third too really got the Nationals fired up. That was April 28th. Braves led 9-1 in that game. Brzezinski shoots one toward left. Worth is going to chase that one. He's on the track and makes it a step shy of the bullpen. Leadoff hit, 3 flyouts follow, and we go to the home third. 5-1 Nationals. MVP of the National League. First half of the year, Harper almost single-handedly carried the Nationals. They did have a hold on first place despite all of their injuries. Hit a dry spell in July and August, and it really came on like a house of fire after the first month of the season. for the Washington club.
I look at these numbers, and the Braves pretty much owned him. Yeah, there were the 5 homers, but just 7 RBIs. But at the time, he was 19.
Yeah.
You know, he was just a baby. He's still just a kid, really, at 22. But the Braves were taking care of business because I don't think he was old enough to fix it at that point. He's got the experience to do it now.
To my untrained eye, he is a different hitter now than he was in the early days of the season. He's certainly a much more patient and selective hitter. Maybe selective is a better word to use. Hitter than he was last season. Tons of walks.
He's just not missing anything.
Right.
He is squaring up every mistake.
Like that. Fly ball center. Born back. Warning track. Wall. Leaping try. Can't get it. Bryce Harper is homered again. This one on an 0-2 pitch.
I mean, this is the kind of stuff that even makes his teammates sit and look at each other and shake their head like, really? 0-2 pitch. It was up. A.J. Pierzynski, watch his body language. And it barely got out of here, but it barely got out of here to deep left center. It was hit a long way. He's not missing anything.
34 homers for Harper now, and they extend their lead to 6-1. Harper's scored 101 runs. That's most in the league. He leads the league in average. He's 2 homers away from the top spot in the National League, held by Arenado and Carlos Gonzalez of the Rockies.
Well, unfortunately for him, the Braves are leaving town. I would be interested to know those years where Barry Bonds was walking 120 times or leading the league in walks, gigantic numbers, if he was still driving in a ton of runs. Because if you're walking a lot, you're not going to get that many opportunities to drive in runs. He's driven in 83.
Yeah, it seems to me that when you play the Giants, the pitcher would always be looking over in the dugout in the on-deck circle when Bonds was coming up, and you think, uh-oh, he's worried more about Bonds than the man hitting in front of him right now. But the amazing thing about Barry, it seems, was he'd maybe see 1 pitch a game. At short, Simmons, great play from his knees, throws late to first. Escobar, an infield hit. Escobar, a 2-hit game. And that's going to be the last pitch of the day for Banuelos, it looks like. And it is. Manny will leave after allowing 6 runs in 2+ innings for Atlanta today. They hope for so much more, but Worth and Harper have homered, and we'll see what Sugar Ray has in store for us after the break.
Baseball is presented by AT&T Uverse, Delta Airlines, and your local Ford dealer.
Nationals 6, Braves 1. Bryce Harper is doing it all. He is wreaking havoc at the plate, on the base paths. And Paul, I don't envy any pitcher that tries to get him out right now.
No, I would have hated facing him, going around the locker room, talking to some of their players. I asked him why he's so good. They said he gets back on that back foot and then gets all of his body into the swing, a lot of times even drifting forward, and that front foot coming up like a punter. And you know what? Having played with David Ortiz and watching him in the locker room and some other guys, if you think you have to be 6'4", 250 to be a power hitter, think again. Bryce Harper, not that big. So if you're a young man sitting in your living room, baseball should give you hope. And Joe, being the hitter, I'm sure you could speak to that more than anybody.
Exactly right on his approach, Paul, and how he goes after the ball. And we saw in that side swing there, even though, I mean, he stays on his back foot, like you said, but when everything goes forward, it doesn't go out over his front foot. He still hits against a very firm front side, which creates a tremendous amount of bat speed, and those hips fly open. We talked about that in Atlanta. It's violent in the way his hips fly open and help generate that bat speed as well. His back foot comes off the ground quite often, but it doesn't affect his swing.
Sugar Ray Marimon is on to pitch for Atlanta. He's promptly gone 3-0 to Ian Desmond.
And Joe, I would like to add, as a former pitcher, I wanted to know if I made a mistake and you could take me deep, but I didn't want to know that if I missed in, you could take me deep, and then if I located my pitch away like Shelby Miller did last night on the slider, you could hit me out to the other field. So that's pretty special.
Well, I've used this quote before. It certainly applies still. Standing by the cage in Orlando when the Nationals came there to play the Braves, when in Bryce Harper's rookie year, Bob Boone, who's a special assistant to the general manager, said it's the most violent swing that makes the most consistent contact he had ever seen.
That's well said.
Desmond walks for a second time. And the parade continues for the Washington batsmen. 1 in, 2 on, nobody out. And here's Ramos. Tough spot for Sugar Ray. He's had to pitch early, and he's had to pitch often in relief. And Ramos, the batter, he struck out his first time up. Banuelos got him with a pitch on the inner half. One ball, no strikes. 2 on, nobody out. And a fly ball to left. And there's out number 1. Swisher makes the play. Ramos is 0 for 2. Here's Taylor. I would suggest something off speed on the first pitch.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a bad idea.
As I mentioned at the time, last 2 swings, Taylor's got a homer, a double, and 5 RBIs. And there's strike 1. Michael Taylor, a 6th rounder by the Nationals. He's a former shortstop that they made a center fielder. This ball's hit a mile high to center. Bourne's got the glasses on and struggled to catch it and didn't. He and Markakis nearly collide and all hands are safe.
I think they did. Sun's not good for either one of them, but Nick had the better angle on it here, and he's watching Michael, so I'm struggling, so he came in to help him out. Michael there, right there, lost it. His hand went out like he lost it, then he found it again and steps in front of Nick, who was there to make the catch.
So the bases are loaded for Tyler Moore. That's ruled an error.
As it should have been. They changed the error in the first inning, which I think is really nonsense. The throw from Harper into the plate that short hopped Ramos and went back to the screen that allowed Swisher to go to second. They're charging the error now to the pitcher, Ross.
Because?
It's a good question. He was there to back up. They don't want their right fielder getting an error.
1 ball, no strikes. Slow roller left side. Adonis can't handle it. Another error. Another run is in. And this is going horribly awry in innings 2 and 3.
It's not going awry in innings 2 and 3 any more than it's been going awry, Chip. And you can slice this any way you want. This is flat out embarrassing. Freddie Gonzalez called it frustrating the other day, but this is embarrassing.
2 errors, 2 runs in. Bases still loaded. Ross shoots one to short. Tricky hop. Simmons will take it himself. Don't blame him. He makes the play, and the inning mercifully comes to a close.
Hit it to Andrelton or hit it to Freddie. Otherwise, take your chances.
Harper hits a homer on an 0-2 pitch. Moore gets an error at third to bring in a second run, and the Nationals are running away again. Knew quite what to expect from Nick Swisher when the Braves got him from the Indians, but as you see on our Georgia lottery hitting the jackpot, he's done some very good work with the Braves.
I tell you what, he works hard. He works his tail off in the batting cage. He also is working to get his knees right, and after a game he's in icing and trying to make sure he'll be ready for the next day if Freddie Gonzalez calls his number. So tip of the cap to Nick Swisher and what he's done and what he's tried to provide to this ball club since he got here.
You've been around good teams, bad teams your whole life in Major League Baseball. I agree with you 100%. What we're seeing is embarrassing. What do guys like Nick Swisher have left in their quiver to say to these guys after a run of horrible baseball that we've seen over the last 11 games?
Well, I said earlier today, they've kind of run out of things to say. And was it AJ that said the other day when he was talking to Paul in a post-game hit something about, you know, baseball's not really a raw type game like football where you can get everybody really jacked up and ready to go play and fired up. Baseball's so long and methodical and marathon like that you got to have a way to motivate yourself each and every day. You got to bring it to the park every day, to every at bat, to every pitch, and there's only so much cheerleading you can do.
7-1 for Ross. Swisher leads off. Garcia and Simmons to follow. It's been an all-too recurring theme for the Braves. I can't count the number of times Atlanta's been down 5-1, 6-1, 7-1 early in games. And for a team without a lot of power and frankly not a lot of big league hitters, it's awfully tough to come back from. And that's, I think, the other big concern that many have about this Braves team. This is the time of year where you'd hope to see some progression from some of these youngsters who've been given a lot of playing time. John Coppolella said as much in his chat with Dave O'Brien in the AJC the other day. He was very frank and very honest, as he was with us. As Swisher walks, there has not only not been progression, in some cases there's been regression, and I don't know how you fix that, because the guys that are here, many of these guys are being counted on to be a part of the Braves' future, and right now they're the present and not playing good at all.
We've said countless times in defense of how the team is constructed right now, that it is going to require patience. You're going to have to be able to trust the people that have put this plan in place and the people they've acquired, but that they're not ready. They're going to have to work to get better.
Tapper to the mound. Ross will take the easy out with a big lead, 1 down.
And in this age of instant gratification, sometimes that's hard. I said the other day, as Braves fans, we're not used to it. You know, it's something that has been something we're have to kind of bite our lip on a little bit to say, okay, but there are good days coming, just like John Coppolella told us the other night in that interview. Better days ahead, and I believe that. To your point, I think the young pitchers that are here largely for the first time getting experience, Boltonevich, Whistler, Banuelos in particular, it's just been slow. There has not been that type of step forward that perhaps we all expected them to be taking. Doesn't have to be every game better than the last, but a good game, bad game, you expect the inconsistency, but it's just been slow to come.
Ground ball to second, and that'll retire Simmons. Swisher to third with 2 outs.
Hey, Paul, what we're talking about right now with this slow progression of these young pitchers, I think you can address this better than I, and that is how difficult it is for this on-the-job training at this level.
It is. The game is so fast up here. The one thing I would like to see is guys learning what doesn't work and then taking a different approach. What I mean by that is, if no one up here is going to be able to pitch away. You're going to have to pitch to both sides of the plate. So I don't need you to be dotting up the inside corner, but I need you to be trying to throw to both sides of the plate. I need you to be trying to throw behind in the count and breaking balls, because that's what wins up here. And these guys are finding out what doesn't win up here, which is fastball away, fastball away. If I get ahead, stay fastball. Throw a breaking ball, and then if I get behind, stay fastball away. And so the thing that bothers me into that progression element is I would like to see a different approach after you have failed, and so far I haven't seen that.
Good point.
2 balls and a strike to Michael Bourne. Well, we've got more youngsters pitching in Philadelphia. Perez, then Whistler, then Julio Teheran on Wednesday night.
Yeah, I should have placed Williams in that category too.
Foul away. And 2 balls, 2 strikes. Big lead for Ross, trying to win his 6th game. He's been tough at home. A 4-2 record, a 1.91 ERA here at Nationals Park. This is his 7th home start this season. And 2-2, now 3-2. Matt Whistler is up in the pen.
Interesting.
Broken bat and caught and dropped, and a bad throw to the pitcher. A run is in. Moore had it, popped out of the pocket, and then in his haste threw to Ross, threw behind the pitcher, and Bourne reaches. Swisher scores the 2nd Atlanta run.
Great play to knock it down. He had a fast runner, so it was a foot race to the bag, but didn't lead his pitcher. Braves will take any break they can get right now.
And Marimon will hit. And Bourne gets an infield hit. And an RBI as well. His 3rd as a Brave this year. Sugar Ray can swing it. He's got a couple of hits. Ball 1 outside. Marlins lead the Mets 2-1. That game moves to the 6th inning down at Marlins Park. If Miami wins and Washington wins, the division lead will be 4 games. And then things get very interesting. 2-0. And Steve McCatty makes his way to the mound as Solis just got up and began to throw for Washington. Ross has to get through 5 with the lead to qualify for the win. He's in the 4th, and 2 are out.
Randy St. Clair, remember Randy, the former Brave, who was the really good pitching coach for quite some time with the Expos organization, and then with Washington when they moved here. He has the team record for most trips to the mound, not only in a game but also for a season. Steve McCatty is right on his heels.
Yeah. That probably was not one of those happy meetings. It was like, look, got a big lead, got the pitcher up, got 2 outs. Let's move this along. And he's thrown back-to-back strikes. Two and 2 for Sugar Ray. And a slow roller. Ross with a bare hand. What a play. And Moore held the bag at first. Terry Pendleton wants the Braves to take a look at that. He thought Moore might have lost contact with the bag on the throw across. And if Marimon reaches, Atlanta would have 2 on with 2 out. Apparently there will be no challenge. Nice athletic play by Ross. Low throw. Moore held the bag, and the Nationals hold a 5-run lead. inning. Jason Worth up for a third time already, and he's already turned in our Toyota key play of the game.
And it was an at-bat where he was dodging pitches inside, taking pitches outside, and when it got to 3-1, he realized, the guy's Banuelos is struggling with his command. Just sit in the middle of the plate, and that's where Manny delivered one, because that was the only place he could really find a strike, and Jason didn't miss it.
It's a shame he even came up in the inning with 2 outs. Joe Ross was hit by a pitch, and that led to the Worth at bat, and he made Banuelos pay. Manny gave up 6 runs today in 2 innings. So now Sugar Ray Maramon is back to work. Worth, Rendon, and Bryce Harper again. And the first pitch popped up. Freddie Freeman will back up, says he's got it in foul ground. And he does, 1 out. And this is exactly what the Nationals have been doing the last 12 games at home. They are bludgeoning people. Matt Williams' club's averaging almost 7 runs a game in their last dozen on their home turf. They've won 9 of those 12 games. Good ERA. And they've got their big arms lined up for the Mets beginning tomorrow.
And for them, they're getting those runs, and then their bullpen is doing a great job. 1.79 ERA over that stretch. And that's despite all the criticism Matt Williams got for the way he handled the bullpen in St. Louis, where they lost 2 out of 3. And every Nationals fan here in Washington thought they should have swept the series were it not for the mishandling of the bullpen. So they're hitting on all cylinders. That's why I say they definitely have a shot at this. They've just got to take care of business against the Mets to get back in it. No, they're already back in it.
Yeah. Mets have just taken a 3-2 lead in Miami. That game's in the 6th. That's the hard part for the Nationals. Outside of those games against New York, they don't control their fate. They need some help. And they know the Mets have the Braves a couple of times. Rendon hits one a mile toward left. That one's going to go into the Atlanta bullpen. Rendon a homer. And he finally has an extra base hit in the series. That's his 4th long ball of the year. It's 8-2.
Again, for these guys, fastball coming back to him. For the Nationals, it's not about how bad their first 4 months of the season were offensively and with all the injuries and everything. Just look at their numbers since August 1. That's all you got to see to realize what a factor they are going to be.
That's why I said earlier that if they come back and make the playoffs, it's not, with all due respect to August and September, the fact that they were able to stay close in the middle months of the season when half their team was hurt is an amazing story. Harper's been consistent all year. Taylor and Moore and Robinson helped keep him afloat. Ian Desmond, since July 20th, got his act together and is a different looking player.
I will agree with that for the most part. They did stay close. They stayed close because the National League East was very mediocre.
True.
Nobody ran off and left them. That was the best thing that happened to them, was that nobody else was playing great baseball either, and it took the Mets forever to run them down and to climb over them.
Yeah, the Mets just couldn't hit. I mean, they had all kinds of offensive problems, and finally made some deals, including the ones with Atlanta that sparked them as Harper takes another walk.
I got some of those. Drew looked up some of those Barry Bonds years with walks and RBIs. So when you walk this many times, obviously you've got to make hay while the sun's shining when you get your hits.
Right.
The biggest year was 2004. Barry Bonds walked 232 times.
232.
And that includes intentional walks. Okay. 232 times. He drove in 101 runs. He had 135 hits to drive in those 101 runs. 45 of the hits were homers.
Unbelievable. So again, Barry Bonds may have seen 1, maybe 2 pitches a game.
Yeah. It's 2001. Go back 3 years before that. Bonds walked 177 times and drove in 137 runs. Now, you can draw your own conclusions on whatever help he might have had.
Fly ball, shallow center. Bourne comes streaking in. He's going to catch that one. 2 out.
But be that as it may, those are the numbers. So the fact that he got fewer opportunities to drive in those runs, the point is, like Bryce Harper, he didn't fail to get that run in too often.
Well, he had help in one game, I think. Buck Showalter, I think, walked in with the bases loaded, knowing that he could only drive in 1 run with a walk. And it may be getting close to that for Bryce Harper, as hot as he is. As Ian Desmond bats, he's got a couple of walks and has scored a run. The Nationals have hit 3 homers today and lead 8-2. Neese and Scherzer here tomorrow. Harvey and Zimmerman on Tuesday. DeGrom and a pitcher to be named for the Nationals on Wednesday. That could be Steven Strasburg, who was scheduled to pitch in this series. Remember, he had the upper back tightness problem. We saw him pitching in a bullpen session here. If Strasburg's ready to go, maybe he would get the ball in the series wrap-up. The Braves will be in Philly while the Mets play here. That's outside. 3-0 to Desmond. Home run cut. He didn't get it. Full count.
Here's an example of what we've been talking about with respect to guys who have gotten their seasons turned around. Now, Desmond's been in there every day. He hasn't missed much time, unlike some of the guys that were hurt. But in the second half, quite an improvement for the shortstop.
Swing and a miss. Maramon struck him out. And the Nationals settle for the Rendon homer in the 4th. ad nauseum, I'm sure, all year long. 23 errors. He's made 3 of those in the second half.
Is that right?
He's gone from 20 errors in the first half to 3. And I know you've said many a time we've played the Nationals, he is a terrific player. It's hard to understand how he could have that many defensive problems.
We also, in the past, have talked about players who take their offensive problems to the field with them. So when a guy's struggling like he was, maybe that was part and parcel about his error numbers too. So he started playing better. I mean, started hitting better. Started playing defense better.
And I can't imagine too what Desmond's going through. It's rumored he had a 6-figure $100+ million contract offer that he did not sign here. I would imagine that played in his mind too, especially with the Nationals' slow start and his personal slow start. To second, Rendon's got it. Markakis is out, number 1. But if the Nationals elect to let him walk, I would assume there will be a lot of teams lined up for a very, very gifted player, Ian Desmond.
He's really become a leader on this ball club too.
One away for Jace Peterson, who's 0 for 2. And that one's out of play. Foul, strike 1. 8 runs, 6 hits for the Nationals. They've hit 3 homers. 2 runs, 4 hits, 2 errors for the Braves. Atlanta led 1-0 on a Nick Swisher RBI single in the first. But the Nationals came roaring back with 5 in the second, 2 in the third, 1 in the fourth. That's bounced foul. It's still 1-2 for Jace Peterson. Oh, at the plate, must have been low.
Not according to Fox Tracks.
Two-two pitch, and that's hit down the right field line and into the corner. Harper's going to dig it out. The ball bounced away from him. Jace Peterson into second, and he's got a double, his 23rd two-bagger of the year.
I was talking to Jace after the game last night, and it looked like a cutter or that short slider that was up. That seems to be the pitch that's hurt him the most today. And Jace was referring to the bad luck of the team. He said, you know, I feel like I'm swinging pretty good to not be getting any more hits than I am. I feel like I'm hitting a lot of balls on the nose right at people. He mentioned Michael Bourne's bad luck. And I said, yeah, it's the case. But when that's all magnified when you're not winning. You know, that's what everybody starts thinking about. I just can't buy a break. You start trying to feel sorry for yourself a little bit. And I'm not saying he was, but that's the impression you get. And nobody's going to feel sorry for you at this level.
And as an offense, as we were talking earlier, when you're down 7-1 every night, game plan's got to be out the window to a certain degree, because when's the last time the Braves scored 7 runs in a game?
That's a good question.
They've got to score 7 more today just to have a chance to win in Washington. Big deficits in the first 3 innings.
By the way, the caddy with another trip.
Yeah. That's down the left field line and into the corner, foul. A strike for Freddie Freeman. Last time the Braves scored 7 or more runs was in Chicago, August 22nd.
We got beat 8-7. I'm pretty sure maybe 9-7. I think there were 2 homers hit in the ninth.
Yeah, 9-7. That was the Montero Soler show in the 8th in Chicago. I think the other part of it too, from an entertainment standpoint, we've all been around teams that have struggled, perhaps not as badly as the Braves are, and struggling is putting it kindly, I think. The team can do one thing or the other usually. So those struggling teams can really hit, just can't pitch, or they can really pitch, but it's a struggle to get 2 or 3 runs. Right now the Braves are having trouble getting outs and having trouble scoring runs, and that makes for a miserable existence. Freeman's flied out and he's walked. And they can afford to pitch him carefully again with a big lead. Bullpen is busy for the Nationals. Solis was up and throwing earlier. And he's up again.
And one of the heads up Steve McCatty may have been giving him was, you got to go 5 to get the W. Throw strikes.
He walked Freeman. Now he's got Brzezinski coming up. And he's not going to get to go 5.
I think he was warned more than once.
Yep. A long one from AJ would make it an 8-5 game. Ross gets a hand, but in some ways I'm sure a disappointing start for him. Handed a big lead. He can't pitch the minimum of 5 today. We'll see what Atlanta does against the Nationals bullpen the rest of the way. Let's go back to this date in baseball history. 1995, 20 years ago today, Cal Ripken played in his 2,131st consecutive game, breaking Lou Gehrig's long-standing record. It becomes official after the Angels are retired at the top of the 5th and play is stopped for 22 minutes. Cal Ripken took a lap around Camden Yards. To complete what was a perfect evening, he later hit a home run off Sean Bosky. And the Orioles won the game by a score of 4-2 over the then California Angels.
Quite a night. He hit that home run. I was like Chris Berman. I couldn't believe it either. Sammy Solis pitched here in game 1 of the series and pitched beautifully. 2 innings.
Line over short. There's a base hit. That's going to bring home Jace Peterson. Freddie Freeman on his way to third. He'll stop there, and the Braves making game of it now. It's 8-3. That's why Steve McCatty was telling Ross, stop walking people. Braves are within striking distance now. And AJ now passes Bill Dickey with hit number 1970 in his career.
Fastball, crossfire to the outside part, and he lines it over Desmond. RBI number 43. Excuse me, 44. Veterans doing it again today.
Nick Swisher has an RBI. He's also walked and scored. One in, 2 on, 1 out, 5th inning. Braves are going to try to do the Mets a favor today, come back and win, and if nothing else, wear down this Washington bullpen. They're going to have to work a lot of innings today. And a quick turnaround. I believe tomorrow's an afternoon game here.
2 innings, 4 strikeouts Thursday night for Solis. Didn't give up a hit.
Popped up right side. Moore gives chase near the Washington dugout, and no play. Fly ball center. Taylor's going to measure it up. There's the catch. Freeman's coming. Throw to the plate is up the first base line. Throw to second is late. Swisher with a fly ball drives home his second run.
Good aggressive attack by Freddie Freeman here on the shallow fly ball. And you see the throw over the head of Moore, so the veteran A.J. Pierzynski takes advantage of that. He was going to tag up and go and watch the throw and read it from there.
So the Braves edge closer. They're down 4 runs now. Adonis Garcia is the batter and is 0 for 2 at the plate. Matt Whistler continues to work in the bullpen for the Braves. Might see him come out for the 5th. He started the series and pitched an inning and 2/3 here on Thursday night.
Fastball there from Solis. It's about the top end for him. Change up and a curveball.
Garcia 1 for 28 with runners in scoring position this year. As a 2-2 count. And spoiled a good pitch. Still alive. Ramos couldn't hang on. There's a break.
Nobody holding A.J. close, so he can get a big lead. Don't matter.
Inning over. The Braves pick up a couple of runs in the 5th inning. Those are charged to Joe Ross, who allows 4 in 4 1/3 innings. 8-4 game now.
Could be a bullpen day. He is in relief right now. I personally like this move because he is one of the guys we are talking about learning at the big league level. Talking to pro scouts before the game, including one from the Diamondbacks, they said, Paul, I did not even see him throw one curveball. We know he's got a slider, but he's going to have to use all of his pitches to be successful up at this level. Be interesting to see how this develops.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, Paul, to see if he does takes the opportunity to use all his pitches and work on some things here. I think it's great.
Matt's one of those guys we're talking about that needs to make some adjustments. Since August 1st, Whistler's given up 32 earned runs in 30 innings. And he's not the only change for Atlanta. Daniel Castro's checked in to play third base. It'll be a double switch for Atlanta. Castro will bat ninth. Whistler will hit sixth. And Ramos, Taylor, and Moore are coming up. 8-4 game now. Braves have narrowed the gap. And out of play for Ramos. Strike one. Ramos has struck out and has flied out today. He's 0 for 2.
I know this is his first relief appearance for the Braves. I'm not sure if he was worked out of the bullpen a little bit last year for the Padres. I believe he did.
There's the breaking ball. 2 balls, 2 strikes. And another one. There's a good start. Ramos is retired on strikes. 1 away.
My mistake. All of his work last year was in the minor leagues with the Padres. Good start for him, though.
Taylor's reached twice. A 2-run double in the second. Michael Bourne's dropped fly ball in the third. That's off the plate. 1 ball, no strikes. Pittsburgh plays in St. Louis later tonight. That's the Sunday night game. Pirates were beaten yesterday. Charlie Morton started and lost.
2 good fastballs there at 94 on the outside corner. Or just off the corner as Foxtrack shows us, but called strikes by Andy Fletcher. Thank you.
Love that down and away strike if it can hit the glove. And breaking ball missed. 2-2. Laced foul. To third. Castro can't handle that.
Third error of the day on Atlanta. The normally sure-handed Garcia just into the ball game.
So errors today by Castro, by Bourne, and who am I missing?
and Garcia.
Garcia, yeah. Thank you. Pop fly foul by Tyler Moore. It's strike one. Clint Robinson's on deck. He would bat after Tyler Moore, barring a double play. Keep an eye on Taylor as he makes his way off the base paths. Sore knee has been a problem for him. He's not getting a lot of push off that leg as he makes his way back to first.
Well, even when he gets up, he doesn't go to one knee and get up. He kind of does a push up and then walks his feet up under him.
Fly ball center. Bourne to his right. And two are out. So Robinson will hit for Solis. 2/3 of an inning. One hit, one strikeout for Solis. Robinson's knocked in 4 runs in the series and just got hit by a pitch.
Well, welcome to the game.
Must be the 9th spot because the pitcher Ross got hit by a pitch. Now it's Robinson, and that prolongs the inning for Worth.
Of course, if you'd moved your foot a little bit, it wouldn't have hit you.
That'll bring up Worth. A long 3-run homer in the second inning on a 3-1 count. He's getting hot at the right time for the Nationals. 7 homers, now 29 knocked in.
More importantly, he's just getting on base.
Yeah.
The top of the order. 333 average start of play since he's moved into the leadoff spot. He's got one of those classic two-handed swings. You rarely see his top hand come off the bat like so many hitters these days. Makes for a very short follow through, a la Johnny Gomes.
One ball, one strike. You might recall it took Jason a little while to get his career going. Injuries were a big problem for him in his younger days. Worth started out in the minor leagues with the Orioles, then went to Toronto, then to the Dodgers, signed with the Phillies as a free agent in 06, was part of their great championship run, and then left the Phillies in 2010 and came to Washington before the Nationals were really ready to be competitive. And Worth was that solid veteran presence in the prime of his career that helped solidify their lineup and made this team a title contender. Of course, adding Harper and Strasburg and Storen and guys like that at the top of the draft didn't hurt either.
Well, baseball's in his genes. His mom, daughter of Dick Schofield. His uncle, Dick Jr., played in the big leagues for a long time with the Angels.
Two balls, two strikes, two outs, two on, 4-run Washington lead. And a cue shot foul.
His stepfather, Dennis Worth, got as high as AAA with the Yankees. I'm not sure Dennis had a cup of coffee with the big league club with New York, but I saw him in the minor leagues.
And after the Orioles selected Worth in the first round, Jason decided, I'm not going to go play college ball at the University of Georgia. That's where he was headed on a scholarship. And a fly ball in the air toward Bourne in center. He's got it. And Matt Whistler, in his first relief appearance, gets out of trouble in the bottom of the fifth inning. '16 A-List member today and get exclusive benefits customized to meet your unique needs. SunTrust Park seating priority is still being given to current A-List members, so become one today and get closer to getting your seats for SunTrust Park in 2017. Go to Braves.com/A-List and join the list today.
Casey Janssen pitched an inning here last night. 1-2-3 inning with a strikeout. He's got a lot of pitches, mostly cutters off his fastball, curveball, slider, change.
Well, a lot of elbows and kneecaps for Jansen too, huh?
Former closer for Toronto.
Saved 22, 34, and 25 games from 2012 through last season. Went to UCLA and lives in Manhattan Beach, California in the offseason.
Not a bad place to live.
Yeah. 2 balls and a strike. Chopper to the left side. Desmond takes his time and got his man with a good strike to first. 1 down.
Hamilton's really hit a dry spell. He's 0 for his last 18.
Infield hit for Michael Bourne and an RBI in 2 trips. And Maben not able to start with the corneal abrasion. You heard Paul Bird report earlier. Might take 4 or 5 games or days before Maben's ready to go again. As Bourne takes a strike. And another. 0-2. Swing and a miss. That one gets away from Ramos, and Bourne's going to reach first on a swinging strikeout.
All help accepted. Breaking ball. That ought to be a pass ball. Michael's had a tough go of it too since he came back over to Atlanta. But 1 for 3 today.
Daniel Castro's first at bat of the day is upon us. 8-4 in the 6th. Washington leads it. Born a nice lead. And a strike. Mets still lead 3-2. Miami batting in the bottom of the 7th inning. Cubs and Diamondbacks are tied 1-1 in the 5th. Ground ball toward third. Escobar, nice play. Throw to first, a beauty.
That was gorgeous.
That was so smooth and almost effortless on what was a very difficult play by the former shortstop.
Yeah, I thought the ball was actually going to get through, so I was impressed that he just got the glove down to get it. But doing a 360 spin and making that good a throw shouldn't be all that surprised from Yunel.
So Matt Williams will play matchup with Nick Markakis coming up. Bourne at second, 2 outs. Jansen 2/3 of an inning scoreless to this point. We'll see who's up next out of the Washington Relief Corps when we come back.
By the Georgia Lottery, Sherwin-Williams, and your local Toyota dealers. Let's go places.
8-4 Washington. Runner aboard for Nick Markakis. If you missed your favorite Braves promotional night, here's your chance to get one of those great giveaway items on Braves Country Grab Bag Night, October 2nd against the Cardinals. Hope you'll join us at Turner Field. Get your tickets online at Braves.com. Felipe Rivero's on.
This guy was impressive the other night. Only 6 walks in his 36 innings. Upper 90s fastball.
Another nice trade engineered by Mike Rizzo to acquire Rivero from Tampa Bay. And that went right back to the pitcher. Absolutely smoked. And let's see if Rivero's all right.
I think he got all gloved.
Wow. Markakis, a sizzling line drive right back to the mound. Ends the inning. We go to the home 6th. Off Markakis's bat.
All glove, amazing. And talk about the merits of squaring up and fielding your position. This was a case of squaring up and defending yourself, which he did nicely. Tough break for Nick.
So the Nationals go back to work with Rendon, Harper, and Escobar against Matt Whistler, pitching in relief. First time we understand Matt has pitched in relief since 2012, when he was a member of the Fort Wayne Tin Caps pitching staff.
Well, he's throwing more breaking balls. I know that. His fastball a while ago, I think it was 95 on one occasion, 94 on some others.
Rendon homered last time up, his 4th of the season. And off his hands and into the second deck. That's foul right side again. No play for Freeman.
Anthony
Rendon empty, 2 outs, 2-2 count.
Sorry, Chip. Anthony Rendon last year, I think the consensus among everybody around the Braves camp was that Anthony Rendon was the best hitter on this ball club, and that included Bryce Harper. You have to have the Fox
track up when I talk.
But this year, with a year started injury filled and slow to get going and get into a real groove, it's been a tough year for him. Average wise, nowhere near what we're going to be used to seeing him hit.
Downstairs, Whistler walked him, and that's first base on balls for Matt today, the 4th issued by a Braves pitcher today. Let's check in with Paul.
Well, guys, I know Matt Whistler just walked him, but I love the sequence right there. On the Fox track, you're going to see a 1-0 curveball. Then you're going to see a fastball in. Pitch number 5 was a fastball up right down the middle, and Rendon fouled it off. I believe he got away with that because he was throwing to both sides of the plate through a backdoor breaking ball behind in the count. Didn't work out for him, but if we're just talking about approach, for me, that last at bat, his approach was progress.
See what he does with Bryce Harper. A little tapper. And the easy flip to first is in time. He got Harper off stride. Runner to second, 1 out. That's about the softest that Bryce Harper's hit the ball the entire series.
Well, he got a breaking ball. He didn't get a fastball. And I think he might be mad because he swung at it.
And here's another good first pitch fastball hitter in Yunel Escobar. Two hits, 2 runs for Yunel. A couple of nice plays at third base today. Didn't get it. Even count. And that shot of Rendon at second base Joe mentioned earlier in the series, and rightfully so. He's not one that got away, but one the Braves would have loved to have been able to sign. Atlanta drafted him. He elected to go to play college ball at Rice instead, and the Nationals now very happy that Rendon is one of their cornerstones. Good fastball. Escobar didn't get it. 1-2.
Absolutely. He is, most days when he starts, and I think this is the case with a lot of starters who then get a an inning or two of relief. They're 92, 93 with a chance to pop one up around 94. He's been sitting on 94 because he knows he's not in there for the long haul today. At least I don't think, but he might be. The way things are going, why not leave him in there?
Another mid-90s pitch that Escobar spoiled. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
Ready for something in.
In the air toward left. Swisher is there. And Escobar hit it off the end of the bat, it sounded like, and is the second out. Here's Desmond. If Desmond decides to take his talents to free agency, I would think the Nationals feel that Trey Turner might be their shortstop of the future. They have a decision to make about Yunel Escobar as well, along with Jordan Zimmerman, their starting pitcher. Swing and a miss, strike 1. As we told you, 23 errors for Desmond, only 3 of them in the second half of the year. So go along with a near 300 batting average in that stretch.
Calling Paul Bird. Calling Paul Bird. Are you there,
Here,
please?
I'm here.
Hey, Paul, in that sequence with Escobar on a 1-2 count, they did come in, but it was down and in, almost like a sinker. It was hard, 94. But I don't, to a right-handed hitter, I don't like down and in because they might drop the barrel on it. If you're going to come in up more on the belt buckle. Is that right or wrong?
100% correct. When someone says stay down, it's assumed you mean down and away in a zone. Up and in and down and away are the 2 key locations where it's a right-handed or a left-hander. Most home runs are hit on the balls down that are middle down or down and in. So you're spot on with that. And again, part of this learning process, I do like the fact that he's pitched to both sides of the plate and has thrown his breaking ball behind in the count.
Harper rolled out. Escobar flied out. Now Desmond faces a 2-2 pitch. 8-4 Nationals. We're in the 6th. And AJ came out of his crouch. Thought that might have been strike 3. Ball to ball. Full count. Blew it right on by him at 94 miles an hour. Whistler has a couple of strikeouts in relief. He's held the Nationals at bay. Now the Braves bats go back to work, down 4 runs. Phillies have 9 outs left to get at least 4 runs and get this thing tied. It's 8-4. We head to the 7th inning. Rivero's back out there with Jace Peterson, Freddie Freeman, and A.J. Pierzynski. 3 left-handed hitters. That's why Rivero continues on for the Nationals. Peterson a double and a run in 3 trips today. Let's see if that shot through the box maybe shook up the talented young Nationals southpaw. Their bullpen is stirring yet again. Out of play. 1 ball, 1 strike. Justin Bour has just hit a home run off Tyler Clippard down in Miami. That one's 3-3 in the 8th. Two balls and a strike. Just joining us, things got off to a great start for the Braves in the first inning. A 2-out run scoring hit from Nick Swisher brought home Nick Markakis to make it 1-0. But all kinds of trouble for Manny Banuelos in the second. He allowed 5 runs. This one out to second. Rendon's got it, and Peterson's the first out. Big blow, a Jason Worth homer in the second. Bryce Harper led off the third with a homer. Anthony Rendon has also gone deep. That came in the 4th for the Nationals. Matt Whistler has worked 2 scoreless innings of relief after he started the series with an inning and 2/3 on Thursday night. So maybe good work today will get him going for his next start as Freeman drives one toward Worth in left. And near the line, sliding try, couldn't get there. And it's strike 1.
We were talking between innings about Whistler and his outing so far, and how when you, as a starter for him in particular, you haven't had any success lately. Nothing's going right. You've had long innings. You haven't had hardly any 1, 2, 3 innings. For him to come in today and do what he's done and not give up a hit so far, that's got to be a big confidence boost for him. He is airing out that fastball.
Paul, is what Matt Whistler is doing today, is that something that you experienced as a big league pitcher?
Before I was, I'll say, an established starter, and coming in out of the pen is different than starting. Different from at times approach to your warm up to, he's not pitching on full day's rest, and you mentioned that's been years since he's done that, so I thought he's done an excellent job. He did have good stuff. I didn't see a velocity drop. Again, we talked about it. I liked his approach, and I think this is something that should very much encourage him after his last outing.
I think so too. I think it'd be a big confidence boost. Peter Moylan is up in the Braves pen right now.
Freddie's down on strikes. First strikeout for Rivero today. Tough duty for the lefties against this guy.
I like this guy. He was very impressive. And who was the other guy we saw the other night that was working so fast?
Was that Blake Trinan or Martin?
Might have been Martin. That's who it was.
That was on Thursday night.
Yeah, that was Martin.
Guy that worked at warp speed in the 9th inning.
Yes. Walked a couple of guys, but also struck out a couple. Got crazy strikeout numbers.
AJ takes a strike, even count. AJ 1 for 3 in the game with an RBI. That came in the 5th. Braves got 2 in that inning. It's the last frame in which they've scored today. And that caught an edge. 1-2. Inning over. We're going to be seeing a lot of Felipe Rivero in the years to come. He is a talented, hard-throwing left-hander. An inning and a third of spotless relief with a couple of strikeouts. And we move to the 7th inning stretch in Washington, where the Nationals lead by an 8-4 score. And like we do in Atlanta, On their home Sundays, they perform God Bless America. And the young lady who did a terrific job of singing the national anthem today before the start of the game is going to get a chance to dazzle the crowd again here in the 7th. She's got a terrific voice. You're going to love her. Sophia Natter is her name, and God Bless America time. In Game 4 of our series, fans country superstar and Georgia native Sam Hunt performs after the game Thursday, October 1st. It's a free post-game concert presented by Coca-Cola and Delta Airlines. Get your tickets now at Braves.com. Nice job by Matt Whistler. 2 scoreless, hitless innings of relief. And now Peter Moylan becomes the 4th pitcher to work for Atlanta today, and he's got the bottom part of the Nationals batting order to play with.
Yeah, keep it going. 2 games already in this series, an inning and a 3rd total, 1 hit shutout ball, no walks, 1 strikeout.
One ball, 1 strike for Ramos, who's hitless today. And that's cute foul. 1-2 your count. I've got Drew checking something for us as Ramos has a 2-2 count. We're in Game 4 of this series. By my count, the Braves pitching staff has 4 perfect 1-2-3 innings pitched in 4 games. They have been out of the stretch a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of stress.
Yep. And it is 4 1-2-3 innings in 30 pitched to this point. No, that's not right. No, it's more than 30 innings.
Well, some of that's Braves pitching problem. Some of that is a red hot Nationals hitting team.
Yeah, it's 32 innings. As Ramos rolls out, leadoff man down. That's an excellent start. That's when Moylan's at his best, gets the ball on the ground. And here's Taylor. He's reached all 3 times he's been up. 2 errors have helped his day. In that regard, he's also doubled, scored, and knocked home 2. And a swinging bunt. Everything going Washington's way. That ball hit the dirt, took a right turn, and then stayed fair. Infield hit for Taylor.
Got to be living right for that one not to somehow roll toward the line. It didn't.
Here's Tyler Moore. He is riding an 0 for today. 8 runs, 7 hits for the Nationals. They've made 1 error. The Braves 4 runs, 6 hits, 3 errors. And a bouncing ball back to Moylan. He drops it. And now has only 1 play, and he makes it. Taylor to second, 2 out. And Dan Uggla is going to pinch hit with 2 outs.
Dan was on the disabled list for a time with I think it was a sore back.
'25th pinch hit assignment for Uggla. He's 4 for 24 with an RBI. A homer, 14 RBIs. We know where most of that damage came this year.
You know where all that 1 homer came from.
You bet. And low and outside. 1 ball, no strikes. Even count. Mets have the bases loaded, 1 out in the 9th, and we're doubled up. 3-3, bottom 9 now in Miami. Many in the crowd saw that scoreboard change. They're hoping the Marlins can walk off and help the Nationals pick up a game. They're 5 out in the East at the moment. 1-1 count.
Oh. Not sure what was wrong with that.
At the bottom of the plate, right down the middle, according to Fox Tracks.
Yeah, Sherwin-Williams painting the bottom of the zone there.
Off the thumbs and into the seats. It's 2-2. Taylor at second with 2 outs. An infield hit for him in the inning. Jason Worth waits next.
Almost by him.
Swing and a miss. And Moylan recovers to take care of Dan Ugla. We go to the 8th. And Bryce Harper's had a gigantic series. He is tuned up and ready for the Mets, whom they will play here tomorrow. And he's our AT&T Uverse trivia question subject. He has 12 walks against the Braves this year. Since 2010, what player has the most walks versus the Braves in a single season?
I'm going to stay with Ryan Howard.
I'm going to stay on the Phillies. I'm going to say Chase Utley. Really?
All right.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I forget about guys that are hurt.
Yeah.
You know, I'm always thinking active players.
Right.
Not disabled players.
Yeah. It does sort of broaden the options for the trivia question, right?
You like to know what the scope is.
Yeah. Here's Drew Storen. He was the Nationals closer. They got Papelbon. He's not been happy about it. When he does not pitch in save situations, his ERA balloons to well over 6. An inning like that would be well received for the Braves today. You got Swisher, the pitcher's spot, and then Andrelton Simmons. Swisher's got a 2 RBI day today. And a swing and a miss. I don't want to say you feel bad for Storen, but you kind of feel bad for Storen. He was having a good year. And they went out and got the much more battle-tested Jonathan Papelbon to pitch the 9th inning. It certainly has deepened their bullpen.
Yeah, I always feel bad for somebody who didn't do anything wrong, still lost their job. I don't know how much of that decision goes back to some of the problems Storen had in the postseason a couple of years ago.
Might. 1 ball, 1 strike. And taken low for Swisher. 2-1 the count. Shadows beginning to creep into fair ground down the third baseline. No issues yet for the hitters as we bat in the 8th at 4:17 Eastern time, and a rocket hitting the seats foul.
And he continues to rake. Nick is swinging it. Four for 8 in the series. So we got 4 RBIs or 3 in the series.
2 today, 1 last night, and then the pinch hit RBI on Friday. So that's 4, right?
Yeah.
He's also scored a couple of runs. Pedro Siriaco's on deck. He's going to hit for Peter Moylan. And Edwin Jackson appears ready for the 8th. And a good start. Swisher walks on a slider in the dirt. So here we go. Like I said, when this kid has a chance to close, he's really, really good. When he's pitching in a non-save situation, he's had some problems. And it will be Siriaco. You know, he likes to swing the bat. See if he can advance Swisher here. Pedro's 10 for 34 as a Braves pinch hitter. 5 RBIs. Strike 1. Another beauty.
It's interesting what a guy does in his windup that he doesn't do in the stretch. You know, he's got that big pause at the top of his kick in his windup, and then a funny step, but he can't afford to do that out of the stretch, so it's almost routine. It's more customary.
His stuff looks a lot better out of the stretch.
Yeah, it does.
At least with a runner on base. And there's out number 1. That sounded silly to say. My point is, without that pause, that sequence to Siriaco is much more crisp than it was to Nick Swisher with that high pausing leg kick. So Siriaco's retired. Here's Simmons, who's 0 for 3, 3 groundouts. Another strike.
Throwing his slider for strikes today.
Down in Miami, the Mets have big problems. Martin Prado's on deck. They're intentionally walking Christian Yelich to load the bases against Tyler Clippard with 1 out. It's a 3-3 game. Justin Bour tied it with a home run against Clippard in the 8th. Mets had him loaded in the 9th, couldn't break through. Now it's 1-2 for Simmons here. 8-4 Nationals in front. Andrelton's down swinging.
One of his best fastballs.
So Michael Bourne bats. An infield hit and an RBI for Michael today.
Walk kind of stirred him up, didn't it?
Mm-hmm. Personally, I think he ought to go back to that leg pause. Like our chances better. He's a different guy. $29,281 the official crowd today. And the 0-2 pitch. It is low. After the walk, Storen struck out the next 3 Atlanta hitters. Home 8th coming up. Nats hit 3 homers. If you stacked them back to back to back, they might not have gone as far as Chris Bryant's did today.
Off the new scoreboard. Holy smokes. How long are they saying that one?
495 feet.
Longest of the year in the big leagues.
I think he hit the first one off the scoreboard this year for the Cubs. And the Braves saw enough of the Cubs doing that when we were in Chicago. Cubs trying to put a little pressure on the Pirates, who play the Cardinals later on. Chicago would love to catch them and host game 1 of that wild card shootout. Edwin Jackson now goes to work for the Braves in the bottom of the 8th inning. It's 8-4 Nationals.
34th game combined for him.
Jason Worth will lead off. Worth is homered today. Marlins still have the bases loaded in the bottom of the ninth inning. Martin Prado's up, and it's a 3-2 count against Tyler Clippard. 3-3 game. Worth standing in the shadows now. Has a 1-1 count. And a good pitch caught the corner, 1-2. We're off to Philadelphia after the game today. Williams Perez will face Aaron Harang on Monday. We'll see if the Braves change their pitching plans for Tuesday. Matt Whistler was supposed to start that one. He pitched 2 innings of relief today. And there were 2 scoreless innings of relief. Julio Teheran will pitch Wednesday. The Phillies have not yet named their starter.
You're right about the Nationals game with the Mets tomorrow. It is at 105.
105. And this place figures to be packed. A lot of Mets fans will make their way to Washington too. 1-2 count. And Worth pops one into right. And he's retired. 1 away in the 8th inning. Looking ahead to the 9th, it'll be Castro, Markakis, and Peterson for the Braves. Storen looked excellent in his inning of relief, a leadoff walk, and then 3 straight strikeouts.
And barring a terrific comeback, the Braves will finish the season here without a victory.
Martin Prado's putting up a heck of a fight down in Miami. He's fouled off 4 straight 3-2 pitches from Tyler Clippard. And a cue shot foul behind the plate. Worth, Rendon, and Harper, the 1-2-3 hitters on the lineup card, all homered today for the Nationals. Rendon's left the yard in the 4th. And it will be Jonathan Papelbon for the Nationals.
Non-safe situation, but I think we got the gist of this game way back.
Yeah.
From Matt Williams and how important it was for him to and his team to hold on to the lead.
He pulled Ross after 4 1/3 innings with a big lead.
Yeah.
And it was after Steve McCatty had come out and talked to him after Jace Peterson had doubled. Freeman was up. He said, I'm guessing you lose him, you're out of the game. Despite that big advantage, Freeman walked. And into the bullpen went the Nationals. 2 balls, 2 strikes. At this time of year, that's what I think the Washington fans want to see. Unconventional thinking. You do whatever you got to do to win that inning, that at bat, and ultimately that game.
No question. You can't get the game back. The calendar's getting short. Got to do whatever you got to do to win.
Strike 3. Rendon didn't like it. And Bryce Harper has had another big day against the Braves and earns our SunTrust Save of the Game honors.
And look at that swing. He's had on his front foot on that one. Fooled on an 0-2 pitch and still clobbered it.
So here's Harper. 2 outs, bases empty. And some of the fans not only cheering Bryce Harper, but word is from Miami, Martin Prado hit a line drive to left with a sac fly that wins the game for Miami. So the Mets let one get away. Former Nat Tyler Clippard gave up the tie, and gave up the lead.
4-3 final.
And so it could be a 4-game deficit for the Nationals that are in play here tomorrow. No balls and a strike for Harper. So that's how the division stands at the moment. If Washington puts up win number 71, they'll be 4 back. 1 ball, 1 strike. We will see the Nationals one more time this year. The final week of regular season play, Washington will come to Atlanta. Those could be very, very important games for the Nationals. And Harper hits it the other way again. Confidence, approach, results. He's got it all working.
The way he's going right now, I don't see how he doesn't win the batting title. He may hit 350 before it's all over. Fastball away, perfect swing at it.
And now the fans see the score go final in Miami. Here's Escobar. And found away a strike. Eight runs on 8 hits for Washington today. Escobar's got 2 of them. He scored 2 runs. Line over second. That's headed for the gap. Look at Harper cut the bag at second. He's on his way to third. Escobar a 3-hit day.
Eight hits in the series for Yunel Escobar. Eight for 16. Bites off another high pitch. High and in, up and in.
I don't envy the Mets pitching staff facing this Washington attack. They are rolling at home. About to win their 10th game in 13 tries on their home turf. And scoring 6.5 runs a game. They've got 8 today. They'll take aim at Jonathan Neese here tomorrow. Max Scherzer will try to get back on the beam for the Nationals. A huge 2-game swing with every game they play starting tomorrow. 0-2. Jackson takes care of Desmond, who strikes out for a 3rd time today. We go to the 9th inning. 8-4 Nationals. Washington in front. Fans, the most popular way to follow the action of Braves baseball is with MLB.com at bat, the #1 app for live baseball. Enjoy live look-ins, highlights, replay reviews, scores, statcasts, live radio broadcasts, and more. Get the MLB.com at bat app now. It's Jonathan Papelbon time. Non-save situation, but an ever-important tune-up with their big Mets series coming up beginning tomorrow.
Yeah, he doesn't have a save in this series, but he's got a win. He pitched the 9th and 10th inning the other night in that close ball game. Was the pitcher of record.
We're told the official score today says if the score holds here, that Felipe Rivero will get the win in relief. He was the 3rd relief pitcher to work for the Nationals today. So Daniel Castro starts things off and takes a little low. 1 ball, no strikes.
Yeah, you got to make him throw you a strike. Down by 4. Need base runners.
This is a tie-breaking game in the all-time series between the Braves and Nationals.
No kidding. No.
All time, the series is tied 99-99.
Huh. Thought it'd be a lot closer than that.
Base hit to right by Castro. And Papelbon in some warmer water in the 9th. Top of the order. Here's Markakis. You got Peterson, Freeman, and Brzezinski and Swisher.
He gave up hits to the first 2 batters he faced 2 nights ago. Bourne and Siriaco both singled off of him.
Markakis hit one right back through the box. That's what greeted Rivero in the 6th. Don't know how the pitcher got leather on it, but he did. And then worked a perfect 7th. Storen had the 8th, struck out 3, walked 1. Papelbon is ahead of Markakis, who's got 2 more hits for the Braves today. Another multi-hit game for Nick Markakis. Might have a little trouble picking up the ball now.
Yeah, that shadow's pretty tough.
Nick having his 44th multi-hit effort today. Strike 3 outside corner. Nick didn't think so.
My goodness. Split finger pitch. It wasn't anywhere close. That was Sherwin-Williams painting the right-handed batter's box.
Jace Peterson bats. 1 on, 1 out now. And he strokes 1 to Desmond. Second base 1. First base 2. The Nats have swept the Braves. 8-4 the final. They are now 4 games behind the Mets in the East, with a gigantic series set to start here in Washington tomorrow. The Braves' losing streak reaches 12 games in a row. They've lost 10 in a row here in Washington. 3 hours and 6 minutes. It goes Washington's way again. 8-4 your final.